Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 338 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Well, I'm back to doing some interviews again. So I know you've been in great hands with Gwen these last 4 weeks, and she has done an amazing job. But now we're going to start going back and doing some more interview style again. We are going to do things a little bit differently because I had a great suggestion that someone said that they really would like to hear from some previous guests who've been on, perhaps ones that were on relatively early in their grief journey, and see what things are like now. So I thought that was a great idea, and I think I will be doing that. At first here, it'll be about every 3 episodes or so. We'll see if that continues or if it ends up going on a little bit further out. But I do think that is a wonderful idea, so I'm glad to do that. So today's guest is the first one of those. You have heard me talk about Stephanie many, many, many times over the years, and it just seemed really right and fitting to do my first interview back to the person who I started doing interviews with way back in episode number 3, and that is Stephanie. So you'll hear us talk a lot more about that as you listen, but I really did appreciate that, and it really just felt right. Like that's what God's plan was all along, for us to do another one together. So thank you so much for that suggestion. Again, there will be a few of those coming up. I've got a couple others scheduled. And if you're one that was on the podcast a long time ago and you'd like to come back on, let me know, because we can certainly get that scheduled again as well. I also have a sponsor for this week's episode. This sponsor is Nancy. And she wrote to me, please use this to cover an episode as close as possible to March 5th. Our angel boy Jacob would have turned 21 on March 4th as he passed away on March 5th, 2025. I wish him a heavenly birthday, and we feel you here with us and are celebrating with you. So again, this is in honor of Jacob by his mother, Nancy. So thank you so much for that. Again, if you would like to sponsor an episode, you can go to the website, andysmom.com, to the donate page, and you can find instructions there. We use Give Butter, so you can go to Give Butter and find Always Andy's Mom that way as well. Again, thank you all so much for your love and support when I have taken this last break. I really do feel much more refreshed and ready to move forward along with you along this grief journey. So thank you for that so much. Right now, I just want you to sit back and really enjoy listening to Stephanie, Keyan's mom. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming back on the Always Andy's Mom podcast.
Thanks for having me, Marcy.
This feels so right to me. So, all of my listeners know that I decided that I needed a little bit of a break.
Yep.
I have been doing a lot of episodes for a long time.
Yes, you have.
I did 334 episodes I did without really much of a break. I've taken 2 weeks off total in all of that time. And I think I was just getting a little tired, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I had some stuff going on with the family that really needed my focus and attention. And so I decided to give myself a little bit of a break. Yeah. And I think it's been great. I mean, Gwen has done a wonderful job with education in the meantime. Yep. And then I think it gave me some time to kind of think about, what do I want to do? And what do I want this to kind of be going forward?
Yeah.
just thinking about things like that. And then, we're going to talk about this later. You've got some different things happening in your life. And I sent you a text message and, hey, do you want to go out to lunch? And I actually could go out to lunch because I wasn't working on the podcast. I mean,
Right.
normally that was something on Fridays, I almost always do interviews.
Yeah.
We met on a Friday for lunch. And I felt like really free to be able to just do that with my Friday, which was awesome.
That is great.
And by that time, I was starting to feel like, yeah, I think I'm going to be ready to go again. And you know what? I think you're the one I want to go with again. Because for all of you who have listened from the very beginning, or if you maybe started again, you found me and then you went, let's see what she did at the beginning. Stephanie was my first bereaved mom guest.
Yep.
The very first.
Marcy, first of all, I think 333 or 334 episodes is incredible. And it takes so much from you. I know it does. And you give so much. And so when I learned that you were taking a short break, I just felt super proud of you because I'm sort of in the same season. Like you said, we'll talk about that later. But I know that wasn't easy to do. And yet when we were able to have lunch, because you weren't, so packed with your schedule, it was so good to see you and so good to catch up and so good to hear you saying, yes, I needed that little break and I'm feeling like I'm ready to move forward. And I think that's just so huge.
Yeah, it was a lot because I didn't really know what I needed at that point. I did feel a great sense of relief when Gwen said she wanted to do 4 episodes for me. It was just like a huge weight off. And then it makes me think, wow, that was weighing on me much heavier than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Like once it's away,
Yes.
then I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that was a little heavier than I thought. I mean, I was so excited to have lunch with you. I was just so excited that day to just drive out there and have lunch and not have like this time that I felt like I needed to get back and I needed to get all this doing. And it's just, I'm always thinking about what needs to be done for next week, what needs to be done for next week, and making sure that I'm scheduled out at least a couple of months or else I'll get stressed out or whatever. I mean, it's just,
Right.
it just gets a bit much. Yeah, it's funny because, I do support groups through Starlight Ministries, which we'll talk more about too. And I met with the women in my group. We take a break off for latter half of December and all of January, but we're a pretty tight knit group. And so we met a couple of times just via Zoom. And the first time I had to tell them that I was taking time off. And that was kind of stressful for me to admit that.
Yeah.
But then the next time we went off, we got done. And one of the women texted me afterwards and she said, it was so nice to see you smile today.
Oh.
And I thought,
Yep.
I really did need that break to smile.
I think you said it so well in that you didn't, right? We kind of do and we do and we do and we go and we go and we go. And sometimes that's because we're distracting ourselves from our own feelings. Sometimes it's because we're doing great things. Sometimes it's because we don't have a choice, right? But you hit the nail on the head, I think, Marcy, when you said you didn't even realize how much it was weighing on you until you took that step away. And I think that is so true in so many aspects of life, that we just keep going and doing because we don't want to let people down.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to look weak. We love what we do, all these things, right? But then when you do give yourself a chance to breathe, you realize oh, I really needed a deep breath.
Yeah.
I'd been sort of holding it all here.
Yeah.
At my throat. And now here I can take a deep breath. So I get that.
Well, and when I kind of, admitted that to these women that I was taking this break, I said, I feel like I can't take very much time. I just need to take a little bit because, now in the last few months, people are starting to donate money and I've never had that before, right? I would randomly get a donation maybe every month or so. I had a few people that did some small monthly gifts a little bit. So it wasn't nothing for sure, But it wasn't like this. Like
Right.
since the fall, we've been episode sponsorship and all this stuff. And I said to them, I said, I can't stop now because now people are donating money and I can't stop now
Right.
because they're donating the money for this to keep going. And then I had just the wisest thing I think said to me was, Marcy, that's not why they're donating. They're donating to say thank you.
Yes.
And I like, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't
Right.
think that maybe it was a thank you.
Right.
I thought it was, so you have to keep it. That's why I think I felt more pressure
Of course. Of course.
because before,
Well,
if
that's
I
what
stop,
you
I
hear.
stop, right? When it was just Eric and I footing the bill for everything.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like, it feels like I could walk away. I mean, not that I ever really wanted to, but
Right.
I felt more like I could
Right. Sure.
than after doing some more of this, right?
Right. Well, but think about it. Even when you listen to other podcasts, it's always like, oh, sponsor this podcast or become a member so that we can keep doing it. Right. That's a natural thing to think
Yeah.
when people are doing that. I think it's so brilliant of your friend who said they're just saying thank you,
Yeah.
and I think because you don't want to have to feel this big, huge responsibility to this listening audience, even though you do, and you've done amazing things and you are there for every listener, right? Like more than you even know, right? But I can guarantee that the listeners want you to feel well and like your soul is nourished and energetic, and right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And so like you have to be the best version of yourself to help other people. And we say that all the time to people. We tell people all the time, take care of yourself, do whatever you need to do, but we're so bad at doing it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
100%. I feel
so I
like I
think it's-
was so guilty of that.
Yeah.
So guilty.
And I just also think that's why it's so beautiful that you did take the break. And because you are showing that self-care, and that's such a cliche word, right? But it is important. It is important to
Yeah.
say I need a little bit of a breathing room and find that space so that you can do whatever it is that you're going to do next, right? Continue, change, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it is important.
Well, and I have to say now, I think things are going to look a little different going forward, and I hope this works. We're just going to try it out. Yeah. So just for you and for my audience, for everybody, I have, I think 5 interviews scheduled for the next 10 days. Okay, a lot. Okay, a lot. But if I do it like that, if I do 5, and then about every 6th usually is Gwen, so. That's taking like in 6-week chunks.
Yep.
If I do that all in sort of a week and a half,
Yep.
that actually gives me a lot more of that breathing time and
Yes.
time to go to lunch with you on a Friday or whatever, right? If it's not, I think those weeks that I have it heavily scheduled may feel a little like a lot, but
Right. But if you know there's reprieve.
yes, I think it might be better. So we're going to see. I mean,
Okay.
I'm giving it a try. We'll see
Right.
what happens. I don't really know. But I think it will be, I'm feeling good about trying it like that for a time here.
Yeah.
And just seeing how that goes and seeing if that feels a little better to me.
Yep.
So I don't
And
know.
that's-
So this is a long kind of prelude that we've had. But I really want to get into talking to you about what you've been doing since you've been on. But I feel like, many, many people listening today may not have heard you when you were on the first time talking about Keyan. So I think I do want to go back and start with that. You don't have to go into as much detail as certainly we did the first time, because if you want more of that detail, you go back. She's technically episode 3. So I did episode 1 with Eric. I did episode 2 with Gwen. I did episode 3 with you. So if you want to go all the way back to episode 3, that's when you can hear Keyan's full story. But let's talk about Keyan. Let's talk about what kind of, so you on this path that we are on together.
Paul and I have been married. That's my husband. Paul and I have been married for, almost 27 years. And we have 5 children and an older son. And then we had quadruplet daughters. So yes, our life was insane and crazy. Those girls were all born at 27 weeks into my pregnancy. So all very, very teeny tiny. And Keyan sort of had all the short ends of the sticks. So medically, she was extremely complex. It took us a long time to figure out exactly what, and there was so many things, right? Like
Yeah.
all of her systems were affected. She was more like a 25-week preemie due to some stuff that happened in utero. And so we started on this journey really from the time I got pregnant, right? We started on this journey of what is going to happen, and this scary kind of like, can we count on that any of these babies are going to live, right? And we had them. Like I said, it took us a long time. We did medical care all over the place. Right around when she was 8, we finally got a diagnosis down at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. It was at that point that we knew that it was a terminal disease, but a rare, it was neuropathic dysmotility of the GI system. So we found out it was terminal, but that everybody who has that disease charts their own course. And so we didn't really know. It wasn't like they could say you're gonna have 3 to 6 months or 5 to 10 years or anything like that. I probably said it way back on episode 3, but we decided then that we were gonna give her the best day she could have every day and not be selfish with the number of days. We really made that commitment to each other and to our family. And I can say that really easily. It's not an easy thing to do. Right. So we
Yeah.
did. We stopped kind of taking her to the hospital as much. She was having a lot of trauma. From that, we really amped up what we could do at home, and we lived our life, and we did medical care, and we ran an ICU unit in our home with some help with some nursing. We just kind of kept living.
Yeah.
And she went to school. She didn't know anything was really wrong with her. She just thought, you eat food and I eat through tubes that go into my, intestines or my veins. You walk, I use a wheelchair. She just didn't know. We continued to live life. And then for about the last year of her life, we just could not get a handle on all of the health stuff. It just was declining. But when you're living in it, you don't realize that's the decline because it's like every day.
Yeah.
And we went down to Cincinnati Children's again to say, like, help us kind of get this under control. And that's when they said, we really can't, that this is the decline and her body is kind of shutting down. And so we had already been in contact with or kind of connected to palliative care and hospice care, early hospice care, but we kind of wrapped those systems back around us a little more tight. And she eventually on July 2nd of 2017 got to go home. She died in our home. Gosh, I can't believe it's almost been 9 years. That just seems incredible. She ended up dying of organ failure, which is part of the disease process. I've always say it was the most horrific, heartbreaking, and beautiful moment that I've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
We did it as best we could, and we got to kind of navigate her end of life the way we wanted to, which was really fortunate for us. Not everybody gets that choice, obviously. And so she was surrounded by her family and us, all of us, and we just handed her back to Jesus. And I can talk about that, and that's our story, and I can, sum it up. She was like a little angel here on earth, I think. She was funny. She never complained. She would always call us out. Like if I was being kind of, nitpicky with Paul, sometimes she'd say, Mommy, you don't hug Daddy enough. And it was literally like the voice of God saying, like, Stephanie, settle down and don't forget that you've got this great support system. So she was, who we revolved our life around. All of her siblings did as well. And so when she died, I was a full-time caregiver, full-time mom. When she died, I really struggled for purpose.
Yeah.
What do I do? What am I going to do? I was really meant to be Keyan's mom and all these moms, all these kids' mom. But I was a really good mom to Keyan, and she was really complex. And then I didn't have that. And that was a real problem for me.
Yeah.
I took 18 months and I called myself the CEO of mourning. I did nothing but go to groups at Starlight, book clubs, to, immerse myself in feeling all that I could feel and learning and reading and just being with her and her stuff and in her space. And then I felt like I needed something more. And then I went back to teaching part-time. And that was really, really good until it just really wasn't. And that's when Starlight needed somebody. And we went through that process. And it was 5 years ago that I was hired on as the director of programming at Starlight Ministries. So they had ministered to our whole family as participants there. It's a grief center here in Hudsonville, Michigan. I know you talk about it a lot. And so I did. I was in a season of saying yes because I didn't know what I should be doing. It was right during COVID and all that stuff. And so that opportunity came along and I said yes.
Yeah, I just want to even step back a little bit. Can we step back just a little? So I remember exactly the room we were in. I remember where you were sitting. I remember where I was sitting
Me too.
First time I saw you.
Yep. Me too, Marcy.
Andy had been gone 22 days.
Yep.
22 days when I went to my first Starlight. And we went around the room the first day. We didn't tell stories. We tell stories week 2. That's always what we do now at Starlight. Yep. Always tell the stories week 2. But on the first week, you did say who you were. And I think we said the name of our child and how old they were.
Yeah. When
they died. And it was a pretty big group. We were in a big group that time. It was really big.
It was.
We may have been the biggest group I've ever been part of, I think.
Yeah.
And I went through, and a lot of them had their children die as adults.
Yes.
You remember that group?
I do.
And there were 4 of us that had our kids die as kids.
Yep.
And Keyan was the closest in age to Andy.
Yeah.
And you were just a year further than me, 13 months further than me. And I just remember looking across at you. And that was the first time I thought to myself, well, look, Stephanie's doing this. Maybe I can too. And I have thought that over these last, now 7.5 years, many times. I say that to myself because you are always going to be 1 year further on this trek as I am.
Dumb journey.
This dumb journey. You're always going to be a full year ahead of me.
Yep.
And so that's always what I say to myself. Every time I hit a milestone, I think, well, Stephanie did this last year and she got through it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I remember that. And I remember week 2. You telling your story of Keyan dying and, having to, watch her die.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, well, Andy was just talking about reading The Lord of the Rings and we were on our way to a baseball game. He was the happiest he'd ever been. Really. He was having a great day.
Yep.
And he just died like that.
Yep.
And I thought, oh, I'm so lucky that I didn't have to watch him die like you did.
Yep. Yep.
And what's so funny.
But do you remember what I said to you?
Yeah. Yes, that's what I was just going to say. So go ahead.
Well, I just remember we were done. We were, it's such a hard night. You share your story. And there was another, couple set of parents that their kiddo was medically complex. And I remember crying through their whole story. But your story was probably the first time that I realized, I got time to say goodbye. And it wasn't just sudden. And I remember thinking how lucky I was. Right. And I remember us talking afterwards and us saying, I remember saying to you, oh my goodness. And we both were this perspective.
Yes.
Of both of us are living without our children. And both of us have horrific stories, even though they're so different. And it caused me to be I had those 2 weeks to say anything I wanted to say, to teach my kids, to snuggle her because I knew it was going to end. And I knew that you didn't have that. And yeah, I just remember that perspective that we both had that night of going oh my goodness, I remember you saying to me, I don't think I could have watched my child suffer, because Keyan really suffered for the last really year. And I remember thinking or saying, like, I can't imagine not having that time to say goodbye. And so it's just incredible, like having, doing the work at Starlight as a participant and then working there as a staff person. Like, it's exactly what we hope for, is to listen and realize that nobody's story is worse or better. It's just different. But yet we can gain perspective. And I've gained a lot of perspective over the course of 8.5 years,
Yeah. Well, and obviously we became friends, and I remember that first episode, our focus was on purpose, was on finding purpose, because you were really trying to find purpose.
Yes.
At that point in time, that was your big thing. I felt like you were, 2 years in, and like you said, you had taken those 18 months, and you went to some like retreat or something.
I did. I went to a retreat that was for all of moms whose children had died from medical complications. Really very specific group of people. It was heart-wrenching. I was only like 4 months out from Keyan dying, but I went, and I just cried the whole time. And the last thing we did was the Clifton Strength Finders test. And I may have shared this on that original episode, but I'm going to share it anyways. And I remember saying to myself, oh, finally. I love data. We had taken the test and we were going to get our results back. And if you have never done Clifton Strength Finders, it only looks at your strengths. It doesn't tell you what's wrong with you. It just tells you your strengths, which is beautiful. So I was like, finally, this is not going to be like an emotional, nightmare. Like everything. It was a beautiful weekend, but I was so exhausted.
Drained, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So drained. I'll never forget. I never forget. The facilitator handed out these folders, and I opened it up, and there were my top 10 strengths. And I just fell apart. I cried harder than I'd ever cried, because when I read those strengths, all I could see is what had made me such a good mom to Keyan. And I remember I was so mad. I remember standing up. I raised my hand. I have a question. Standing up at my table and saying, this is exactly what made me the perfect mom for my daughter, and she's not here. And I'm 41 years old, and I don't want this to be the pinnacle of my life.
Yeah.
And she said, and I'll never forget it, she said, Stephanie, you don't get to change the strengths that God gave you. They are what they are. But I promise, if you keep doing your grief work, if you keep sitting in the mess of it, you will find her smack dab in the middle of what you end up finding to do. And those same strengths will make you the perfect thing for the next thing that's on the horizon. And I don't know why I chose to believe her, but I did. And so I just remember, I just kept plodding away right in those early days. Just, what is my purpose? How am I going to find her? And teaching was fantastic, like I said.
Yeah, I remember you taking that job.
Yeah, and I loved it. It was very, very part-time, and I could bring my kids to work if they had a day off. And then COVID happened, and it was just, ugh, no one wants to teach during COVID. And then obviously taking the job at Starlight, like it was, for 5 years, I found her smack dab in the middle of it. And it was like a culmination of everything that I had done in my life. From my degree, which is in juvenile criminal justice, to my experiences with Keyan and my family, and the other jobs when I was a social worker and having my own kid, like everything. It was like the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And so for 5 years, I was the director of programming and then the director of education at Starlight. I just recently, it's not even been a month, stepped away from that. And so I loved what I did at Starlight.
Yeah.
I loved the people I worked with. I loved the people that we helped and we took care of. I loved being out in the community teaching about grief. But the last 9 months, I was physically just beat up, physically not well, emotionally not well, spiritually not well. And I think God was telling me for quite a while, and I was a little stubborn, like, you need to take a break. You need to take a break. You need to take a break. And there's a lot, right? There was a lot. My husband's parents both died in 2024, and we were caregivers for them, and I realized I had a lot of work to do when they died. Like, I thought I had kind of healed that caregiver role, and then I realized, oh, it really wasn't totally healed. And so they both died in 2024, and then 2025 was just like racked with, I was so sick all the time and just all these other things. And so I think God was kind of nudging me all along
Yeah.
that maybe this season is done for you, which I couldn't imagine. Marcy, it was so strange. I couldn't imagine that my season was going to be done. I thought I would work there forever because I loved it. But when I, just like yourself, I took a leave of absence in December. And as soon as I did that and had some breathing room, I realized even though I was doing so many good things, just because it's good doesn't mean it's not hurting you and then draining you. And I think I was so busy caring for everybody else and educating and making sure that everybody could talk about the hard things and, all these things that I was really passionate about, that I sort of avoided my own grief.
Yeah.
And I never meant to. I never did it intentionally, but I
No.
think, like, nobody loves to feel like this. Nobody loves to sit in this. But as I taught and as I know and as I've lived, you don't outrun it. And it's just been in the last month or so that I've allowed myself to just sort of sit and feel what it means to not have Keyan physically here. The girls turned to 21 in November, and that was a big milestone and a really hard one for me. I feel like those big things, right? When they turned 18, when they graduated high school, when they took away to college, makes her absence a little louder.
Well, and Andy's 21st was last year too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Keyan died when she was 12 and a half, and Andy was right around that same age, right? When he died?
He was 14. He had just
14, that's right. I was thinking he was 13, but
yeah, he was 14. Yeah, he was 14, but still, obviously, they died a year apart. Right. So that brings their ages, then currently,
right,
much closer
similarly
to the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know what you mean by needing a break and not even realizing it. And somebody said to me, I was struggling last week, feeling, it's such a privilege to be able to just not work for a while, feeling guilty about that, feeling like I've let people down, all the things that we do, right? I don't know why we do them, but we do. And somebody said to me, we always talk about when people die, we hope that God says, well done, my good and faithful servant, right? We talk about that.
Yeah.
And this woman said to me, what if God's saying that to you right now? What if God's saying, well done, you have taken care of and given and been for so many people. My gift to you now is just to be with yourself.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, like here I am looking at it like, oh, I feel guilty and I feel bad and blah, 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 and it was just this whole spin that was beautiful.
Yeah.
That maybe it is just a gift from God that says you get to pour into your husband and your kids and yourself, and you get to feel this and deal with it. I said to you the other day, 8.5 years in, I hate being a mom who's had a child die. I hate it. And I don't know that ever will go away. And I've been able to kind of settle into that, right? Like, and what does that mean? For me, that means most days I'm a fully functioning woman who takes care of my house and takes care of my, calls my kids, and, we're empty nesters. So like there's that, and remodeling our house and all that kind of stuff, right? But I think what it means is that even 8.5 years in, there's going to be days that knock me off my feet.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because it's just what it is, because I would give anything to have her back. Right. And so I think that's been my latest realization. Like, you can do all this work, and trust me, like, I went to Northern Michigan University and got a certification in being a grief supporter, right? I am a level 1 death doula because end of life is really important to me. I am constantly doing continuing education. I have a whole bookshelf. I should have sat over there. An entire bookshelf that's all just grief books. You can sit in it and learn and deal with, and it helps you get through. But you're always going to have those days. And that's not to sound, I don't want to scare anybody, right?
Yeah.
But I think I had this misnomer that, like, eventually maybe this is going to be okay. And it is. It is. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
But I think there's always going to be those days that still catch you off guard. And you're just mad and sad and wish it were different.
Yeah.
So that's where I am right now.
Right. And it is hard.
And so I had to remind myself it's okay to put your own oxygen mask on.
Uh-huh.
And I had been teaching and doing, and it was time for me to take my own advice. And so I've stepped away from Starlight, and I miss that all intensely in some moments. And then on other moments, there is, just like you were saying, there's a sense of huge freedom and a weight that has been lifted when you live in that hard. And this is what you do too, Marcy, with the interviews. And when you live in everyone else's story, there's not a whole lot of time for a scab to form on your own heart.
Uh-huh.
And my dad said to me very wisely, he said, just take a break. You don't have to keep ripping that Band-Aid off over and over and over.
Yeah.
Because you're not letting a scab or scar even begin to form. And we know we will never be the same people. At least I believe. It changes us. Grief changes us. But we do. We can move on through life, and we can be functioning, and we can laugh, and we can have joy. But we always have that scar. But I think for me, 5 years really heavily, deeply in the grief world just didn't allow me some room to heal.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, we had this talk, as we were having lunch that day. We had that. And you said to me, that when I do these interviews, every single week, all the time, and get in that, deep in it so much, it's not always the best thing for me.
Right.
And I know it's so healing for people to tell their stories, and I know it's so wonderful, and I know that getting through that is so healing, but yet, is it the best for me? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. And this is why we're like, okay, now we're going to see what happens when I do several days in a row or every other day for stretch, and then do a stretch without, and see how that feels. Because as you were saying, going in it so much is hard.
It is.
It's hard.
And I think for a long time, Marcy, I think that I felt comfort by that hard.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And I was going to say that too.
I'm in it.
I needed it.
But then there comes a time, right?
When I started the podcast, honestly, the podcast is the only reason I was able to go back to work. I really, truly feel that. When I started this podcast, it got so I could tell myself on Tuesdays and Fridays, every single week, your only job is to do your grief work. And that was interviewing other people and talking to other parents and doing all of this and just being in it, being in it. And when I was in it all day, every Tuesday and every Friday, it made those other 5 days of the week tolerable.
Absolutely.
And it made it so I could see patients on Monday and Wednesday and Thursday, because I knew on Tuesday and Friday I was going to be in the grief. And it was such a relief to me, because I felt like I was living it every day. And when I now could compartmentalize it into 2 days of the week, not that I didn't have hard times other days of the week. I certainly did, right? And I'm not certainly saying that, but I'm definitely saying when I could feel like okay, I have a hard time on a Monday. I had a tough patient. I had something going on. Like, okay, but you know what? I can really deal with that tomorrow.
Yes.
Like tomorrow, I can really sit in it and deal with it. But it gets to the point where you are certain, and I think there's a different amount of time for everyone.
Yep. Oh, for
years, whatever, decades, whatever it is that it got to that I no longer felt relief by sitting in the deep pain every Tuesday and every Friday. Yeah. So now I've changed things, and that I try to do things a little differently. I try to schedule it a little differently because I don't want to sit in the heaviness every Tuesday and every Friday, because now it doesn't bring me a sense of relief.
Right.
Now it's doing more the opposite.
Well, and that's a skill that I used to teach, right? I used to literally teach something very similar where, look, if you give yourself a 20-minute timer every day, and for those 20 minutes, you sit in and you feel and you hold their t-shirt and you smell and you do these things. And then when that timer goes off, you do your very best to kind of put it back in that pretend box, right? And you kind of put it on the shelf. And tomorrow you do the same thing. Your body learns that it has a space and a place to feel all. That's exactly what you just were talking about. But it doesn't mean that that's going to work forever. You know what I mean? Like, it helps you be able to function. It helps you be able to, like you said, compartmentalize and say, okay, I need to be able to get my kids to school and go to work and do these things. And because my brain knows that tomorrow I have another 20 minutes, and it's something that is a really great skill. I started to notice at work that if I was, when I was telling my story at an education event, I would get teary. And that was something very new. I was always able to just kind of share my story when I was speaking and educating in a very, concrete, emotionally like pulling in way, but I wasn't emotional. And that was, when I started to really realize, like, there's a lot of tears here that you're not leaving room to shed.
Yeah.
So, I've done a lot of therapy over the last all the years, right? But still doing it. I've cried a lot. I miss Keyan so fiercely, and yet I am in a spot, and I want people to hear this. Our situation is unique, right? She was very medically complex. Our world revolved around her.
I remember you talking about your family when your family would be on an outing. Keyan was in the wheelchair and everyone was just surrounding her.
Yes.
I always have that image in my head of like the other 6 of you just in a thing with Keyan smack dab in the middle. Right.
And, no one knew how to move or where to go until we took off of the wheelchair. And then it was like this little group of baby ducks following mom in the wheelchair, But for years, and for years, even after Keyan died, everybody would get out of the van and just sort of stand there because we didn't have that central focus to like guide us where to go, right? Mm-hmm. Just this last December, our son lives in Columbus, and we all spent a week together down in Columbus. And we were having a great day. We had gone to the zoo. We were out to dinner and all just kind of sharing our thoughts and dreams for 2026. And I text my best friend, like, oh my gosh, like this is what we've been doing all day and it's so much fun. And she said to me, do you realize, and not anybody could say this, right? But she's my best friend and this is what we do for each other. She said, do you realize that you couldn't have had that day if Keyan were here? And I said, absolutely, I do. And we had talked about it, actually. Like, we had talked about, because I think it's easy when your child dies from medical stuff, it's easy to forget that medical stuff. Not easy, but you kind of go like, oh, what would they be doing if she was 21? Well, the reality is, like, her body was sick and she didn't leave the house and she was in pain and she was suffering and we couldn't all go and do the things. And this is, again, like I said, this is not everybody's experience because you and I, like, Andy was like fully living his best life, right? And so you don't have that. But I can now say, I know that Keyan is so much more than good. I would give anything to have her here. But that's not the case. And so now I get to pour in to my other kids and my husband in a way that I couldn't when she were here. And holy cow, the first million times you think that, you feel so guilty.
Yeah.
But I keep telling myself, like, that was all part of the bigger plan. And I don't have to feel guilt at enjoying my other kids. Being a bereaved mom is so complicated.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the guilt and the couldas and the shouldas, like Gwen always says, don't use those. But they're there, and you got to face them. And so that's the season I'm in, like just soaking up my other kids when they let me, like I said, because they're all in school and doing their own thing. But we're extremely close knit, and I know that partly is because of Keyan and her legacy, and they talk about her, and they're very sensitive to people who might have someone who's died, and
Yeah.
she's made us all better people. She just did. So I try to live in in the spirit of gratitude for what she taught us, and now how we continue her legacy. So, which is really hard then to walk away from Starlight, right? Because like I felt like
Right. Because you felt like that was it.
I was doing so much, right?
Yeah.
And she was smack dab in the middle of it.
And you were, and you did.
Yes.
And you did.
100%.
Right. And it was perfect. I mean, the timing of you getting that position, it was just, honestly, it was amazing, right? So
It was.
For those of you who don't know, obviously everybody that listens knows Gwen. Gwen's on all the time. Gwen just did the last 4 weeks. Gwen had that job at Starlight. Correct. That was Gwen's job. And she wanted to go off on her own and start her own business. She started Your Grief Guide, which you've heard all about. She started that. But it was kind of a what is Starlight going to do now? And it was just at the time when you were really like, I don't think this teaching is my purpose. What is my purpose? I need to find my true purpose. And we know with your strengths, you are a caregiver. You love taking care of people. You are amazing at helping people, taking care of people. And all of a sudden, everything I remember Gwen telling me, I didn't know that Stephanie had all of these qualifications that like made her the perfect replacement for Gwen. I mean, she said that to me. She's like, I mean, here you were, like you'd been participating, coming to group for 2+ years, and it just like, I don't know, it felt so much like God just put you there
100%.
and arranged it 100%. And Gwen could not feel guilty about things too, because I think obviously she would be feeling that too. I'm
Absolutely.
sure.
I remember.
I just remember her feeling so blessed. Like, I didn't know that she had worked as a social worker.
I know.
Like, there were all these things about you. No, I didn't know. She didn't know. Nobody knew. And it turns out you were like there in this, just standing in the wings, waiting for God to tap your shoulder and say, hey, or tap somebody's shoulder and say, hey, it's her. This is the one. She's the one.
It was. And like I said, I didn't want to work full time. I didn't even want to work 32 hours. That's when I was working at Starlight. I just didn't. But I was in this season where I was like saying yes until God shut doors. I was saying yes. And so it was so great. And now I have to be in a season of saying no. And that is hard, but it's going to be great too, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I really feel like Starlight, you had that 5 years at Starlight, and I feel like God knew that you were going to be there 5 years.
I think so too. I didn't,
right?
But God definitely did.
No, you didn't, but God did, and I feel like God knows exactly what's going to be happening now.
Absolutely.
Like, that was your place for 5 years. I don't know how many years Gwen was there, because obviously Gwen was there long before we started going. I don't know. But there were a certain amount of years that was supposed to be her, and now there's a certain amount of years that it's supposed to be you, and I don't know who's going to be the next you, but God does.
God does.
And it will work out, right?
It does.
And it will work out. And you needed to do something different for you now. And I think that's a good lesson for me and for everyone that's listening, to just always take a step back and reassess. I
Yeah.
think back many, many years ago. I don't even know who the pastor was. There was a pastor of a church. And you know how you have, like, we would fill out spiritual gifts inventory, and then they ask for like volunteers. And I've been in churches in the past. They're like, we need Sunday school teachers. You need to be a Sunday school teacher. Like, oh my gosh, we've got to, and you feel guilted into being a Sunday school teacher, even if you were not called to be a Sunday school teacher. But whoever this pastor was, they said, we want you to look at your spiritual gifts and then find the best way to use your spiritual gift. And if that is by teaching Sunday school, beautiful. Right. If that is not, okay. Right. If your spiritual gift is going to be if you make a dinner and bring it to somebody who's homebound in our congregation, that's the gift that you're giving. Like, you need to look at that and do what you need to do with what God's given you.
Yep.
And if you teach Sunday school and it was not your calling to teach Sunday school, that means that somebody else maybe was called to do that and should have been doing that, and you took away their opportunity. Yep. So if you're not called to do something, and even though it's a good thing, I mean, teaching Sunday school is a good thing.
Yes.
But if it's not your spiritual calling, you should not do it, because someone else really could be blessed by that.
Or like for you and I, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be this Sunday school teacher forever.
Right.
Right.
And I do think too, other lesson you've given me is that I need to take a step back and be reassessing how things are more often than what I was.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's also why when things started happening in the family and I just started feeling worse and I'm crying more and more upset. Yep. I think part of it was, it just felt like things were just going to keep going like this. Just like, okay, this is like the next however many years of my life.
Yes.
I'm working 3 days a week at the office. I'm doing 2 days a week, basically trying to do the podcast. I mean, like, right. And it just felt like it's just never going to change.
Yep.
And I just don't know that that's the best for me.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's really important. I think for me, right, actually, in all reality, I was working, I took the job at Starlight 5 years ago. It was 32 hours, and I loved it, and I loved it, and I loved it. And I was literally working, especially after my in-laws died, and that caregiving piece was absent for me again, easily 60 hours a week. And if you would have told me, Marcy, 5 years ago that I was going to become a workaholic, I would have been like, that will never happen. My family's always been my priority. I don't, but it did. It did because
it's a good thing.
Right. A, I loved it. B, it gave me purpose. And C, it helped me not have to feel all that I was feeling.
Right. And you felt like, okay, I'm doing this with Keyan, so that means it's good.
Right. But like I said, when my therapist said too much of a good thing can be harmful. And that's exactly what, and like one of the things she also said to me was, anything that you give energy to is taking away from your healing energy. Now that was about, I had surgery and I was recovering, but then I looked at that as a broader, like, that's so true. Like, when I'm giving away my energy to all these things, and even when I love them, but I'm not taking care of my own grief, then there's a problem. Yeah. And that's where I landed. Like, it's just time for a break. And so,
and what's it going to look like going forward? You don't know yet.
No idea. Would I love to still speak? Sure. And maybe that's what will happen. Maybe I will decide to finally write that book that I always have been talking about. Maybe I will just be with my dogs and my husband and take walks every day and, exercise when I feel like it and take a nap when I feel like it.
And go out to lunch with me every once in a while.
Exactly. And learn that it's okay.
We don't live super close together, just so you all know. We are like...
I know. That makes it harder, doesn't it?
What are we, an hour and a half apart, probably?
Yeah. Yep.
So these have to be planned well in advance, but...
Yes. So, but it's... We've talked so many times before about the both and, So I think I will always hate being the mom whose kid has died. I think that's just never going to go away. But I also know that she is good so much more than good. And I can be okay and enjoy my life and live in this stage and miss her fiercely and cry those tears, but also laugh. And, I have a daughter who's the lead in the musical. And so I was able to go all 3 shows, and I'll be at all 3 shows this next weekend because that's where my heart wants to be. So that's what I'm doing. So there we go.
And I think things changed a little for me too after, Valeriano had his baby girl, and now I'm a grandma to her.
Absolutely.
And it's so funny. Do you know that I say those words and I cry?
Absolutely. That makes sense to me.
And it's hard for someone who's not bereaved to know why I would do that.
Yeah.
But
Oh, it's just,
it is hard. It is not just happiness, for sure.
right. No. That's kind of what living as a bereaved mom is, right? Every happy moment has a little bit of heaviness to it. Don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it is like, oh, Andy would have been a great uncle. Andy would have loved this baby. Andy would have, all those things that he's not here for, that Keyan's not here for.
And that is it. I mean, that is it. Obviously, the day Isla was born, I took a picture of her with Andy's teddy bear. I mean, that's one of the first pictures I took of her, was of her with Andy's teddy bear, because I man, he would have been so excited.
Yeah, exactly.
To be an uncle. And, he's missing this.
Yep.
He's missing this.
Yep.
Just so many things.
I know that Valeriano, and I know that you, and I know your other kids, that little baby will know Andy,
Yeah.
She will know Andy, not in the way that we want.
No.
She will know him. Yeah. I think I said to you too, early on, my therapist said to me, someday, Stephanie, believe it or not, you will look back and kind of miss these early days of grief. And I was like, what in the world? This feels so miserable. Like, no way will I ever miss this. But I think we talked about this the other day too. Like, sometimes I do miss those early days where everybody knew that I have had a daughter that died, that I didn't have to explain it. People understood why I sort of stayed holed up in my house,
Yeah.
They gave me a lot more flexibility and a lot more grace.
A lot more grace. Yeah.
And now it's like you have to decide who you're going to tell and when you're going to tell, and then their response, all that stuff.
Oh, all of it, right? And I can't cry when I talk about Isla in front of normal people, right? They're going to think that's crazy.
Right.
So, there are lots of things that you just can't, you just have to kind of hide now.
Right.
That you wouldn't have had to.
Correct.
Right. Had I had this happened within a year of Andy's death, and I had a grandbaby, which obviously that couldn't have happened because I didn't have anybody even close to age enough. But I'm just saying,
yes,
I would have been given grace for that.
Oh, 100%.
People would have said to me, oh, it must be kind of hard.
Exactly.
Seeing her come so soon after Andy died or something. Right. But not one person, not one has said anything like that to me.
Right. It's supposed to just be all.
Not one person has thought I would have anything but joy.
Right. And that's the thing, right? Joy for grieving moms and dads comes with a thread of grief. It just does.
Always.
No. That's where I say, I think, I believe I'll never be healed from this, right? I'm in a healing journey that will not heal until I'm reunited with my daughter in heaven. That's what I believe. And so the word healed just kind of irks me sometimes, right? Because I'm just never going to be over it. I've learned that healing journey just can look different in different seasons. And I think it will continue to do so,
Well, and actually the word healed has never bothered me that much. I think it's because as a doctor, I think about when something is healed, especially if it's a surgery or something, it leaves a scar. You have a scar. There is a difference between being healed and being cured.
Cured. Yeah, I agree with you. Yep.
You are never cured from your grief.
No.
Ever.
No.
But I think you can be healed.
Yeah.
I think you can be healed or healing, right? Because the scar will be there. The scar is always there. It is never going to go away.
Nope.
It's impossible.
Yep.
It's impossible for it to go away.
Right.
So that's what I always feel like. As long as I have that differentiation
Yep.
saying
Yep.
healing
Yep.
or not cured.
Right.
That's just the one
Absolutely.
that you can't. That will be impossible.
And that makes total sense to me as a medical
Yeah.
professional. For me, healing, but not healed.
Yeah.
Because like healed means it's done, but you're right.
Yeah.
Healed also means that there's a scar and it never goes away. So everybody's got their own little nuances, but
Right. Mm-hmm.
definitely not cured. Definitely not.
Definitely not.
And yet, Paul and I went on this vacation in the fall, something that was a big bucket list for us, or for me, and he went along. That whole 10 days, we talked about her, but I only shared with one other person on that trip that Keyan, we have a daughter that had died. And that was also a realization for me that maybe at Starlight, it was like my defining feature was that I was a bereaved mom, right? Everybody knew.
Yeah.
Everybody knew. Everybody asked me. Everybody talked about it, which was great. I loved it. But yet having those 10 days that I realized people didn't have to know gave me this, again, that kind of reprieve that you talked about. Like, oh, I can just be a wife on vacation. They can assume that she's with all the rest of them at college, right? I don't have to say, well, 3 of them are at college. She's not, So it's just amazing how you just keep learning.
Yeah.
You just keep learning. And thank goodness, right?
Yeah.
Thank goodness that my heart is open to learning, and I hope that never stops. And yet it can be hard and painful and exciting at the same time. And I have to say, and I think I've said it before, but I might be a year ahead of you, and you can look at me. And the cool thing is I have people who are a year ahead of me that I can say, if she can do it, so can I. So isn't that why bereaved moms and bereaved parents are so connected, right?
Yeah.
Because we can see that in each other, and we can help each other get to where we've been.
Right. Exactly right. Well, thank you for being now my first guest on my comeback.
The comeback.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I just love that. It just felt so right to do this with you today. And anyway, thank you so much. And your talk couple weeks ago was healing, and this one has been as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Marcy. Thanks for having me, for being open enough to say, like, I look at you a year ahead and I know that I can keep going. That means a lot to me. Thank you for 334 episodes.
You are now number 338 because now, Gwen's done some without me. Yeah.
But thank you. Thank you for your friendship and everything that you're doing for this community, and keep taking care of yourself too, because maybe we'll hold each other accountable for that.
I think so. I think we should hold each other accountable. I love it. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation. Or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.